Hello, everybody. Sebastian here in another video. So I'm taking the political compass test. I've already taken it before. I just want to see how close I can get to the same answer. Ben Shapiro. I was watching somebody reacting to his video of him taking the political compass test. being being in the upper category does not mean that you're in the Nazi category. Just for those who don't know. Like, yeah, I'll show you later. But yeah. Economic globalization is irrelevant. It should primarily serve humanity, or inevitable. I can't read for crap. If I say something wrong, I'll fix it eventually. It should primarily serve humanity rather than the interests of transnational corporations. I agree with that. I just click agree. I think if companies were to serve humanity more, I feel that our world would be better off, especially with complete globalization. If companies were to serve humanity, I feel like our world would be better off. I'd always support my country whether it is right or wrong. Disagree? Because obviously if my country is tyrannical, like North Korea, I wouldn't support that country, even if I lived there. I'd fake support it. No one chooses their country of birth, so it's foolish to be proud of it. Depends on where you live and the type of country you're in. Because some places, like the United States, most of us are proud of our country, and we have reason to be. We have one of the greatest countries in the world. But I'm gonna say disagree because it completely depends. Our race has many superior qualities compared to other races. Strongly disagree. No race is better than the next. We are all equal. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. No, because Afghanistan is an enemy of Russia. Well, the true Afghanistan. The Taliban would probably loves Russia, but the Afghanistan government does not like Russia. And Afghanistan is the enemy of Russia, but Russia is not really our enemy. So that make Russia our friend, and we're not friends. It's hard to explain. Let's take your disagree. Military action that defies international law is sometimes justified. Strongly agree, because international law is flawed. It's made by countries that want to limit what other countries can do against them. So it's flawed. There is now a worrying fusion of information and entertainment. I'd say agree. Because people nowadays interchange the two. They interchange fiction for fact and fact for fiction. And I don't like that. The facts are the facts, and there's not much you can change about them. You can disprove them, but then you're still creating more facts. So people are ultimately divided more by class than by nationality. I think the upper class and the lower class are divided so much more than any race could be. Even like upper middle class versus upper lower class. They are completely divided. I'd say agree. Controlling inflation is more important than controlling unemployment. As Ben Shapiro said, you can't really control unemployment. You can only create more jobs and hope that people decide to get up and get a job. Like with the United States right now, before the coronavirus, jobs were skyrocketing. And after the coronavirus is over, jobs will start slowly, steadily go back up. And unemployment rate will start dropping. So all you can really do is control the economy and keep the economy boosted. And if inflation gets too bad, unemployment will skyrocket because the prices of everything will go up, but wages will take forever to adjust to the price of everything. So what you end up having is people not having enough money to buy bread. So agree. Because corporations can't be trusted to voluntarily protect the environment, they require regulation. Agree. If you read up on the 1800s and how food used to be prepared, if it wasn't for government regulations, half the country would just not exist because of disease, and especially during like pandemics, all it takes is one person to get sick and all of a sudden the entire factory is contaminated. So I agree. From each according to his ability, to each according to his need, is a fundamental good idea. I don't know. What's the rest of the quote exactly? And this could be interpreted from each according to his ability to each according to his need. I don't know. I don't really want to answer this. Now, what I do know is what is that it's related to Marxism. I don't know exactly what it means. I just know it's related to Marxism. So I'm not gonna touch it. I wonder if it'll just let me not answer that at all. The freer the market, the freer the people. I'm gonna disagree. No, I'll agree with that. I'm more neutral on that. It's a sad reflection of our society that something as basic as drinking water is now bottled. Brand consumer production. So I'm gonna talk about this in rural areas with like cities that are like towns that don't have as much taxes going to them. They can't afford to have the like big water purification plants, so their water tastes horrible, and most of the time it's not actually safe to drink. They try to get it as safe as possible, but half the time it's not safe. So having being able to go to the store and buy bottled water instead of having to drink like fish tasting like fishy tasting tap water, I think is a good thing. So I'm gonna go with disagree. Land shouldn't be a commodity to be bought or sold. Strongly disagree. land being bought and sold is part of people's, like, okay, so for a company to make money, they got to have some land to set up an office for the people to work on. For construction companies, they got to have somewhere to store all the materials, like their equipment and stuff. Land is, if it's all controlled by the government, which is basically what this would have to be, the government could pick and choose what businesses they wanted to shut down. They'd have too much control over businesses. And I don't like how that would work. Government should not have that much control over businesses. It is regrettable that many personal fortunes are made by people who simply manipulate money and contribute nothing to this society. So people that manipulate money, that would be accountants that keep track of your money. That would be bankers, essentially people that they don't actually provide a good, but they provide a service. Most people say it's manipulating money, but they are an essential part of an economy. So now, for the people that don't contribute anything to society, those are two separate things. How do you make a fortune without contributing anything to society? Like even YouTube influencers, they provide entertainment. They make a lot of money off of entertaining people. So it's hard to make money without contributing anything. Contributing anything, unless you're sitting there like a daddy's boy and just you have a small fortune basically being given to you by your parents. So, disagree? Protectionism is a sometimes necessary in trade. I'm about to Google that. What does that mean? Paste. Near. Okay. The theory or practice of shielding a country's domestic industries from foreign compet- competition by taxing imports. Hmm. Hmm. Wait a minute. Just put it through me. So, I would say agree, just based off the definition. It's basically you're boosting businesses, but you're also keeping them from. Hmm. You're basically keeping. I don't know. It's hard to explain. I'll just say agree for now. I'll do more research on it, and if I and I'll make a decision later. I'll tell you guys which one I actually decide on that. The only social responsibility of a corporation should be to deliver a profit to its shareholders. It says social responsibility. Delivering profit to its shareholders would be with like an internal thing. Would be within the company's hierarchy. So uh, I don't know. I disagree with that. I think that they should also they shouldn't be focused purely on profit. They should be focused on making sure that the resources they are using won't be depleted in a couple of years. Stuff like that. The rich are too highly taxed. In the US, I would say yes and no. Because it depends on how they're rich. Like, if they're rich from, like, businesses and stuff inside of the United States, then they are not as taxed as much as people that are rich from like, international trade. Because imports and exports have a nice amount of tax on them right now. So somebody who that does international business would probably have higher taxes than somebody who just stays national. So I'd say agree. Those with the ability to pay should have access to higher standards of healthcare. Yes, if you are able to pay extra, then it's actually you should get better healthcare. Because, like, as somebody who has insurance to pay, like, doesn't ever really pay it out of pocket, I th- I don't think our healthcare is the best, especially where I'm at. Like, they do what they have to, and that's about it. They don't jump through no hoops to do anything. And that'd be even if you could sit there and pay the extra amount for special care and stuff like that. We kind of get like the minimum. So if you could, obviously, if you can pay more. Also, with how hospitals are, they always charge you more. Like, hospitals make a profit. So if you're able to pay more, then obviously you should be able. The hospital will make more. Therefore, they won't have to charge as much. They can charge less, and in the long term, that could be better for people that are have, can't get insurance, or they're going just off insurance, but they have a cap limit to where anything exceeding that certain amount of money, they have to pay. That's what I had to do when I broke my ankle. We had to pay for the anesthesia and stuff when I did the surgery. So, yeah, I agree with that. Government should penalize businesses that mislead the public. Strongly agree. If you say that your product does one thing and it ends up doing nothing or the opposite of what you said it does, you should be penalized, because that's essentially that's essentially stealing. I don't agree with that. A genuine free market requires restrictions on the ability of predator multinationals to create monopolies. To have a free market, I think you should remove predator multinationals and just put the ability to create monopolies all as a whole. A monopoly is the worst thing for any economy or market, because if they have complete control over it, they don't have to compete with nobody, meaning they can charge whatever they want. And if they control everything, that means you basically have to pay if you want that good or service. So, and I'll put strongly agree. Next page. People are ultimately divided more by class and nationality. I've already answered these. Next page. The crap. What is going on? I want to go to the next page. Okay. Apparently. I didn't answer this one. Okay, that's why. I'll disagree. There you go. Abortion, when the woman's life is not threatened, should always be legal. Disagree. My circumstances for this are if the woman's life is threatened, if the woman is raped, or if the woman is pressured, like pressured into a pregnancy that ultimately will ruin her life, then she should not have to carry the child to term. Now, after the baby has a heartbeat, then unless her life is threatened, I don't believe that she should be able to have an abortion. That's just my opinion on it. But like, if you're like 14 and you were pressured, somebody pressures you into getting pregnant, and you ultimately decide that you're not going to be able to take care of the child, then don't bring another child into this world that is ultimately going to live most of its life in child protective services or in a foster care system, because we already have enough kids that are trapped in the foster care system because the parents decided to have a kid and then realized that they couldn't take care of that kid. So, all authority should be questioned. Strongly agree. Now, I don't mean like if you don't like what, like if they make a law that you don't like, that you should riot and stuff. I mean, you should keep your government in check. Keep them to deal with them. Keep them in line because they should do what is the best for the country, not the best for their own interests. And that's what the Second Amendment is for, to keep the government in check, to keep the government from becoming a tyranny, basically, and just completely using the military and police forces to take control and keep control of the country. And Biden wants to get rid of the Second Amendment. That should say a lot about how our country's going to go. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. This basically means this could essentially mean if a country, if we go country to country style, if a country bombs another country, then that other country would have in their own rights to bomb the first country. I don't agree with that because what ends up happening is one tyrannical government bombs another tyrannical government, and what ends up happening is the civilians suffer, not the government. The civilians end up suffering because the government could just go into their bunkers and hide, while basically the militaries of each country are just bombing the crap out of each other. So disagree. taxpayers should not be expected to prop up any theaters or museums that cannot survive on a commercial basis. I disagree with this for one reason: COVID. If we, with how little profit they're making right now, if we don't prop them up right now, we're not going to have theaters and museums by the time COVID is over because they're going to go bankrupt. So that's only for like pandemics and or like economic crashes because the government has money. I don't like the government spends less money every year than they overall collect. So usually they have they have trillions of dollars just reserved that they could sit there and split up and at least keep theaters and museums neutral, where their expenses and their profit are are at the same level. So there we go. Schools should not make classroom attendance compulsory. Let me Google the exact definition of this because compulsory doesn't sound. I keep doing that. I keep clicking the wrong thing. Here. That's a long video so far. Okay. Search word. Paste. I keep trying to press that. Okay. I agree and disagree at the same time. With how the basically, if you don't have to go to school, only the ones people that choose to go to school and get an education will. Meaning, there's a chance that people won't go to school, won't get an education, and they'll end up doing poorly paying jobs and end up either being homeless or barely afloat. I think everyone needs at least a high school education. You can choose whether to go to college or not, but I think everybody should get at least a high school education. And that's coming from a high school student. So, all people have their rights, but it's better for all of us that different sorts of people will keep to their own kind. No. Strongly disagree. Because the United States is the melting pot of so many different races, ethnicities, nationalities, cultures, and those are all different things. We all should have equal rights, and we should all be allowed to associate with who we want to associate with. Because that's how you get diversity. If whites only stayed with whites and blacks only stayed with blacks, we wouldn't have basically me. You wouldn't have people that are mixed that can trace their national like heritage back to like three completely different continents. And I think everybody should be allowed to associate with who they want to. Good parents sometimes have to spank their kids. I have only been spanked twice in my life. I don't. I disagree. You shouldn't have to put your hands on your kids to teach them anything. Like, you shouldn't have to spank your kid, like inflict pain on them to teach them discipline or anything. If you're around their entire life and you just lead by example, you try to give them advice and teach them stuff to keep them on the right path. If you if you like if you